Welcome to episode 2 of HibsTalk Extra Time with Craig and Liam. This week we're joined by Stuart Wilson to discuss the breaking news that Jack Ross has been relieved of his duties as the Hibernian manager. We discuss what led Hibs to make this decision and where we go from here with a massive cup final on the horizon. McClendon's moan featured again, and we look to preview the game this Saturday away in Paisley against St Mirren, and Liam also gives us an update on his pie chart, having tasted the delicacies from the Tony macaroni. Remember to follow us on social media if you don't already do so. HibsTalk on Facebook, at HFC Talk on Twitter, and also subscribe through your favourite podcast player to get the latest episode when available. Thanks again for listening and enjoy the show. Episode 2, HibsTalk Extra Time. My name's Craig. I've got Liam with me, my co-host, and we've also got Stuart Wilson from the deepest, darkest parts of Kent. How are we doing, Stuart?
Not too bad. Delighted to be back. The contract negotiations have been sorted out, so I'm back. Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're back on the A show as well.
Took a bit of
we'll see
to get here, Stuart. Eh?
It did, honestly.
We'll see if anybody really listens and see if I notice that I called it the A show. But anyway, here we are. We have been planning the episode for a few days because we weren't able to get an episode out on Monday due to other commitments. And last night we were kind of sitting thinking, right, this is going to be an absolute humdinger of a recording. And then the messages come through very early on this morning that the news broke that Jack Ross, having spent 2 years at the helm at Easter Road, had been sacked. Kind of took a while before the official news to come through, before Hibs broke it officially around about 11 o'clock this morning. Liam, what was your thoughts when you seen that first thing this morning?
I didn't believe it at first. It got shared in the chat and I was kind of half asleep anyway, and I was like, no chance. I don't think so. And then as the news started to go around and it became in more outlets, and then Sky, I think, tweeted it, and I was like, oh, it must be right then. And then Hibs came out with it. And to be honest, mate, I'm disappointed. I think Jack Ross is a good manager. I wanted to talk about how he turned us around from being a poor club when he took over from Heckingbottom and took us into the top 4, top 3, and stayed there for such a long time. But, you know, and I ken that recent results haven't gone his way, but I felt that he had the capability, especially after a window in January, to turn it round. But Hibs board obviously didn't think so. There was a lot of Hibs fans I see on Twitter rightly criticising him for performances, tactics, substitutions, signings, stuff like that. So, you know, maybe it was the right decision, but I can't pretend I'm not disappointed.
What about you, Stuart? How do you feel?
It's absolutely mental. I was sat in a business networking meeting this morning, so it's when like-minded business people get together, stupid o'clock in the morning. My phone's buzzing away in my pocket, and I'm wondering what the hell's happening. I don't think I'd get this much notification if my mum had passed away. It's going absolutely mental to kind of then catch up to say, is this real? Is this actually happening? Of course, we've all been disappointed with the recent run of results. I'm sorry, like Liam and yourself, Craig, to see him go. I think he's been badly supported by the board and transfer windows. But for long enough, we've been sitting there saying what we need. We all know what we need. Us football fans are a lot more educated and a lot more opinionated, or a lot more informed recently. But the run of results kind of speaks for itself. Changes had to be made. Do we then give this guy the cup final, which is obviously coming up in about, 9-10 days? And do we just let him have free reign of it? Or do we make wholesale changes? We have to appreciate that we're not in the days of Petrie anymore, that we're going to sit back and wait for things to muster. We have got an American owner. These guys give zero quarter if their coaches or managers, whatever the role they're called, are not performing, they get rid. We're almost in a bit of a Chelsea era at Hibs right now. And I think we're going to see a lot more of it going forward.
Can I just say, Stuart, just on that quickly, you said that you wouldn't get enough, as many notifications coming through as if your mum had died, but your mum's no manager at Hibs, mate, so it's obviously not as in no in the same bracket. You know what I mean?
I'm going to say that you have no idea how influential my mum is, and I'm going to tell her that you said that, Liam.
Well, get her to apply for the job.
That's it. I'll tell you, she'd get them working. Nobody
Mrs.
would dare.
Wilson.
That's it.
Mrs. Wilson's at the wheel.
I think it's a difficult one. I mean, we have, so throughout the course of lockdown, obviously, you know, we always had this chat that we've got. So some of us that do the podcast, some that come on it every so often, some that have never done it. And throughout lockdown, it became, you know, we done like our quizzes, we done our like up till 3-4 in the morning, sitting drinking and all that, like, which almost everybody around the country was doing at the time. And when the football came back, you know, we still had that sort of close bond where we were all watching the games at the same time. And, you know, for 3 o'clock to 5 o'clock on a Saturday, your phone was never out your hand. And very often we remarked on how boring it was. However, we were willing to sacrifice style for substance. Too often in the past, we'd had managers who, take Stubbs, for example. Stubbs' team at the time, you know, played some cracking stuff, but we were also in the Championship, and we also failed to get out the Championship on 2 occasions. Jack Ross comes in when the club's at an incredibly low ebb. We'd had a horrendous sort of 12, 14 months going from Lennon to Heckingbottom. And, you know, you need to give him his due. He took us from 11th in the league. His only full season at Hibs was disrupted by COVID. I mean, you could probably go through a list of things and look at reasons why you could probably sum it up that it's not his fault. But on the flip side, a bad workman doesn't blame his tools. And he still, for me, should have been able to get more out of the players that he had at his disposal. And the reason that
100%, yeah.
The reason that he didn't was because himself, I feel, as a manager, was too conservative and too pragmatic.
I think for me,
he's too placid. You're sitting there going,
yeah.
Can you imagine? Sorry to interrupt you there, Liam. There's too many times that you're thinking, is this guy able to give a proper rocket to some players?
I don't think that's the kind of guy he is, though. I really don't. He comes across in interviews, and I mean, people might say monotone. I don't think he was particularly monotone, but I don't think he's the Lennon type to, you know, give players it tight. I think he's more, he puts his arm around folk and he gives constructive criticism rather than screaming at people. I mean, I've never been inside the dressing room for one of his team talks. Maybe he does do that, but he doesn't strike me as someone like that. And I think that's why I liked him so much. I thought he was, I mean, it looked like he had good man management. Every time you seen a picture on the Twitter or the Facebook for Hibs from the training ground, he was always laughing or smiling or something. It looked like he was a good guy to have around the place. But, you know, to be fair, mate, the results speak for itself. I'm disappointed, but we're a fickle bunch, football fans. And, you know, once it starts no going away, and 4 points for 27 is terrible form, relegation form.
It's relegation fall down. You're absolutely right. There is so many times where we're looking at, okay, we had our little COVID break, and we were saying, okay, away to Ross County, away to Livy. These are the ones we're needing to pick up on what's happened to the team. These are teams are in bad form themselves, not playing well, and we have had 0 points and 0 goals against them.
As much as you say that,
and 4 red cards.
Exactly. Yeah. I was going to say that. I mean, the players need to be held accountable up to a point.
Yeah.
Because there's 4 different players being sent off in those two games. And
it's not even as if they're youngsters either. It's your captain, your vice captain, your most likely now your highest earner, and an experienced centre forward who's missed the majority of the season already through injury. It's
I didn't get that. I was really disappointed with Paul Hanlon and Paul McGinn last night. I was sitting next to my pal at the game, and to be fair, they probably both could have got straight red cards
I thought
for
Hanlon
their,
was. I
for
thought
their
Paul could have
first
Hanlon was.
gone
challenges.
easily.
I
Yeah.
thought
I think
Hanlon was very lucky.
Paul
to score in
McGinn
the
comes
park.
up and over the ball, and I think he catches the boy on the far side. And I said to my mate, I went, "Yeah, that's lucky that was a yellow because that could have been a red." And he turned and said to me, he went, "Someone's going to get sent off for Hibs tonight. I can just tell." And this is when we were playing all right. We were not creating chances, but we were getting into the positions and stuff. And you think Paul McGinn is experienced enough not to make daft challenges like that inside their own half when he's already on a booking. And then Paul Hanlon, I mean, he should have been sent off for the first one. That's a horror tackle, and that's what him now joint sixth or something for appearances for Hibs, and he's wanting to make tackles like
The second
no
yellow
comment.
for Hanlon, is it stupidity or frustration? Either way, it's not captain material.
No, absolutely not. And I've said for the start, since Paul Hanlon got made the captain, he's not a captain.
No.
And I know that doesn't reflect anything on or it does reflect on Jack Ross because Jack Ross would have picked him. But he must do some amount of organisation and shouting and training, because whenever you're there in person, you can't hear him.
No. There's been too many times in the past where we've said, Paul Hanlon, is he a better leader when he's not having to nurture, support other players? But you've now got Doige, you've now got Porteous, who are a bit more mature, a bit more experienced, and yet he's still looking lost out there sometimes. For a guy who's got that many caps, who's played that many games for us, and he is a Scottish Cup hero, but there has to be more to it.
Yeah, they're definitely. I mean, I remember when we beat Aberdeen in the game last season when Doyle scored the volley. I actually remarked that you could hear Paul talking to Josh Doig a lot, like trying to help him through the game. And I think Hanlon's best spell at Hibs was that sort of season under Lennon, where he had either Effie or McGregor beside him on one side and Lewis Stevenson on the other.
Yeah,
I think since he's been given that whole responsibility of being the captain, being the focal point, I just don't think it suits him. He's not, he's not like Porteous. When you look at Porteous, Porteous is someone who you get the feeling that Porteous would slide tackle his granny if it meant getting the ball, whereas Paul would maybe try and usher her out to play. No, do you know what I mean? Like, it's Paul's, and that's not a slight on Paul at all.
Sure, onto a weaker foot.
I think Paul's an excellent defender, and he's very rarely let us down, in terms of having absolute stinkers. But last night for me was just a culmination of everything. I mean, you can go back to the Motherwell game on Saturday where I felt we were quite unlucky. We had a shot off the line. Campbell hits the bar. Nisbet or someone else, I think, hits the post. On another day, those go in, and you're talking about a 3-4-1 victory. But I think for me, it was summed up last night when he brought on Allen at half-time and played him left mid.
I didn't understand that at all.
Yeah.
Like, I did not understand that at all.
Against Dundee United, it worked with Allen out on the left because he had McGuinness alongside him and Neal and Jake Delhaize behind him.
Can we say Neal last night?
He's too slow.
What did he do?
He's too slow.
I think it was half cut.
What was he going to drive home? We're going to sit here and kind of say, I'm not going to slag Joe No. I think he's a great player, nice tight control, can get out of very, very tight places very, very well.
Well, he did a lot of that last night, though. He really did do a lot of that.
But there's far too many times he's a passenger. He's not offering anything. Maybe it's him and Jake Delhaize don't work well together. We are 100% missing McGuinness. But McGuinness, once again, from Jack Ross's comments a few days ago, is nowhere near ready again.
Well, I mean, and that's not Jack Ross's fault.
No, I'm not. You can't blame managers for injuries.
No, but I mean, I get what you're saying about Neal, and I know we're getting off the tangent about Jack Ross, but I'll just say this about Neal and JDH, and they are good players. You know that there's good players there, but there were so many times last night. They did a lot of stuff right in the middle of the park. They did, but there were so many times where, they've got the ball in the middle of the park and they take a split second longer to make the pass when everyone can see that either needs to go, like maybe Paul McGinn's making a run down the right, or someone's free in the middle, and it takes them ages to pick that pass. And that's what was so frustrating last night. They got the crowd so toxic and on the players' backs. And then
that's the epitome of Jack Ross's Hibs. We've had no pace going forward. There's been no drive. There's been no, let's get this in. Let's bang it forward. Let's do something forward. And that's been the big frustration.
Well, he's let down in the transfer market in that regard, though.
He actually has been, yeah. And I think that's fair to point out that the last window, there's a reason why our former director of football, or whatever the actual role title was.
Head of recruitment.
Yeah, something like that. We didn't get in what we were after, but that's not one window. We have known this for at least 3 or 4 windows, and we've been let down. How many times have we been on this pod screaming for, we need at least one other striker? And that's not letting somebody go. We need a more experienced centre back. These problems have not been addressed. Now, I'm not blaming Jack Ross on this. This is the way football's going. There's very few managers in football nowadays. They're all head coaches. They're all first-team coaches, things like that, whatever job title they're actually been given. But these guys are not getting their roles in the recruitment. It is, and I'm on my soapbox right now, there's far too many times that we have not been playing the Hibs way. And this is going back to, and I can see the look on Craig's face right now, because this is the beauty of the webcam side of things. I'm not talking about Stu, the other Stu who used to watch football in black and white, that is used to seeing us playing good flow and attacking football. There are teams that always want to play good football and see it, but that is what I expect from my club. And we have not seen this for a long frigging time now.
Yeah, they were saying it on the radio last night. Sorry, Craig. They were saying it on the radio last night. I can't remember who it was. I think it was maybe Lee Miller on Sports Sound last night, saying that the expectation to play attractive football and get wins every week and finish in European positions and challenge for cups at Hibs is so high. The expectation is so high. And he goes, and that's only because of the way that the famous five played, and the Hibs fans expect to see the same sort of football. And he went, and everyone wants to see that sort of football, but the expectations at that club are so high. And I agree with him, and my expectations are high. I've always been told by my dad or whoever's taken me to the football that you go and see Hibs because you want to see good football. You go and see Hearts if you want to see hoofball and missing out the midfield and the rest of it. But at the moment, Hearts are playing the good football and we're playing the rubbish football. And that's just the fact of the matter.
I think just to make a point on the whole the midfield thing at the moment, before going on to this Hibs way myth, that Jake Doyle-Hayes and Joe Neal are symptomatic now of modern football, and I think that's what we haven't caught up with. I'll give you 2 teams as an example, right? Man United and Arsenal. Both of them have been incredibly boring to watch, right?
Yeah.
Despite the plethora of attacking options that they've got. And why is that? Because they play with this double pivot. McTominay and Fred, or Partey and Xhaka. Now, our players are nowhere near that level of quality.
But it's all relevant.
They're playing within the same sort of system, this 4-2-3-1 rigid system. And this is where football, we've had that sort of phase from sort of the late 2008s onwards with Barcelona, where they just suffocate teams. And they just, that's what I felt Barcelona back then were boring, because they went from side to side to side to side to side to side to side. They just suffocated teams. And then we moved on to this sort of Pochettino Klopp era of the gegenpress, where teams just, as soon as they lose the ball, bang, they're on it. They're getting it back. They're getting it back. They're getting it back. This is the new evolution, I think, in football now, where it's a more slower, tactical,
side to side game,
possession based. It's almost moving it from side to side, trying to move the opposition from side to side to maybe
when you move it left. Yeah,
when you move it left, bang, you go right.
It's exactly what we did against St Johnstone away.
Yeah. Did you watch the? And again, I'm not comparing Hibs, but Borussia Dortmund the other night. They were playing in Europe.
I don't watch Diddy teams.
Fair call. Yeah, honestly, see their crowds. You think ours are bad?
Ours are bad.
Yeah, right. They've got a lockdown experience to experience, but they were holding the ball. They were just bouncing it back and forward like it was nothing else. And then all of a sudden there was a killer pass. Now, I'm not making a comparison that we should be playing that kind of football. Fuck me, there has to be something out there.
The thing is, though, Stuart,
there definitely is. But there is an over realistic expectation of where supporters feel that we should be. This is where when you talk about we play the Hibs way, you go the famous five, right? Which none of us seen, only our parents, grandparents seen. You've then got Turnbull's Tornadoes. When the Tornadoes broke up, by all accounts, the 80s was horrific. You then get into the early 90s under Alex Miller. They won a cup, but he's not remembered fondly despite the attacking options that he had. You then go through Duffy till you get to McLeish, right? So McLeish is when I first started going to the football. 98 to 2001. Hibs were great. McLeish goes, Hibs are cack again till Mowbray comes in. And we're good for a year and a half, 2 years. And then you when Mowbray leaves, I know we had that high spot with Collins, but you can go through Yogi, Mixu, Fenlon, Calderwood, Butcher. All of these guys who showed nothing in terms of, maybe Yogi did for 6 months until it went pear-shaped. But, I have never identified Hibs as being a solid attacking team. I've seen Hibs for the majority of my spell watching them as a greater sum of our parts, sprinkled with a Russell Latipi, with a Lee Griffiths, excusing the sort of the golden generation, so to speak, when we have Brown, Thompson, Whittaker, Murphy, and all of that at the same time. Yeah. I feel we've kind of went away off on a tangent though regarding Jack Ross.
Not really though, because we're talking about how murder we've been.
No, I know, but I mean, like in terms of
we're also talking about what do we expect from the next candidate?
Yeah, I mean, the next. I'll be sort of just to wrap up on Jack Ross. I think that when you look at him leaving compared to a Calderwood, for example, like I would quite happily have never heard for Calderwood again. Yeah. But Jack Ross for me has had to contend with a lot of mitigating circumstances. You've got COVID. He's horrendous support for me in the summer. I've banged on about this for so long.
The way he took over as well.
Yeah,
he took over a team in 11th. We also have to remember Hibs and Hearts both interviewed Jack Ross.
Yeah. So it's but I'd like to thank him for his services to the club. Has it been great?
Agreed.
Has he conducted himself in the right manner whilst being the Hibs manager? Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I'd certainly like to think that he'll find himself. You know what's going to happen? He'll get a job at a team in Scotland. He'll come to Easter Road,
and he'll beat
us. So I mean, moving on to, like Stuart says, what do we expect from the new manager? What do we expect from our executive leadership at the moment? Because for me, the decision to give Ross a new contract in the summer, followed up by a plethora of new contracts for players in the last sort of 4 to 5 weeks, is now looking, in hindsight, it's easy to say, like a bad financial decision.
But if you look at Jack Ross up to the start of this season, it's a brilliant decision. You tie this guy down who took us from being like 11th, 10th, wherever we were when he took over. We finished 7th in the previous season, a little bit more time. We could have made top 6, up to 3rd in the league. It was a great decision to give him a bigger contract. However, he wasn't supported in the wider spectrum of it all. Yeah. We were looking at getting another striker in, which we're always screaming at for a number of windows, another centre back. We ended up not getting another striker in, and getting an unproven under 21 kind of striker in. And of course, the guy's going to be let down. No, sorry, centre back. And it's been let down for it. So, at the start points is not the stupidest way to say, yeah, giving Jack Ross a bigger contract isn't a bad idea.
I agree with you on that. I agree with you on that. But I mean, they must have been kicking themselves. I don't know anything about how the board works at Hibs or anything, but I don't think if the fan pressure wasn't as high, I don't think the board would have made this decision so soon. I think they would have given him at least until after the cup final. It's a big decision for the board to sack him 10 days before the cup final, but now they've got another big decision on their hands. Yeah. Do they go hell for leather and try and get one of the candidates that we're going to talk about in the next couple of minutes, or do they let David Gray take them until after the cup final, until January, until the end of the season? Who knows? But moving swiftly on,
like I said, where does this leave the executive leadership of the club? Because for me, Kensell has almost shot himself in the foot a little bit by publicly backing Ross to the level that he did recently when he done a podcast with, I believe it was the Hibs.net official podcast.
Never heard of it. No, for me, that is managerial talk. He's not going to come out and say, we're not quite sure about him. Christ, yeah. Can you imagine?
No, but when you listen to what he said and the detail of what he said, and from what I've heard as well from sort of areas around the club, is that Jack Ross was given very much carte blanche. You know, looking at if you look at Matthew going, it seemed as if he was going to be in recruitment. I listened to Steve Keen's interview with Adam Tomlinson. It was very much a case of he got the job because he'd formed up a solid working relationship with Jack Ross. I'd heard that the training centre was getting sort of done up in a way that the first team players were going to be kept separate from the youth team players as an incentive for these under 18s to get there. You know, in terms of their socialising and their changing areas, etc. And now that seems to all be sort of going out the window. I mean, you can pick at sort of different things that they've all said. You know, that you look at rumours of players not being happy and whatever. I mean, looking at where Hibs go from here, the favourite already is Alex Neal. The favourite, you know, in terms of bookmakers, favourite is Alex Neal.
Yeah, I'd be happy with Alex Neal.
Someone sent, I think maybe Liam Riley sent a list of bookies' favourites into the chat earlier.
Try and get it up.
None of them.
We can have a look.
None of them.
Too late for that, mate.
Aye, buns in the oven for getting it up, mate. But none of the names really to me, I quite like the look of them.
I'm not disappointed by Alex Neal, but I'm not excited.
I mean, to be fair, he done an incredible job with Hamilton. You know, as we seen firsthand, he solidified them in the league. I mean, that's them only just went back down at the end of last season.
That's still like 4 or 5 years after he left.
Yeah, he built the foundation. You know, he left them sitting, I think, third, maybe after 20 games.
Yeah.
Then went down to Norwich and took Norwich into the Premier League.
A buddy of mine from Business Network, a massive Norwich fan, cannot speak highly enough of Alex Neal. That's something to go for. And
even
he is
at
a
Preston,
football fan. He goes to the games. Getting a team up to the Premier League is something else. After that, it's cannon fodder. There are very few Eddie Howes up there.
Yeah.
With greatest respect, Norwich are not a Premier League team.
No, Norwich are one of these weird
in-betweenies.
They're like certain players. They're like a Dwight Gale who's too good for the Championship, but they're not good enough for the Premier League. Do you know what
Mitrovic?
Mitrovic and all. They almost need like a mini league between the two leagues.
Yeah.
I mean, he by all accounts, he done all right at Preston. I know by the end when he left them, he sort of I think he got them into the playoffs maybe in his first or second season.
Yeah. I wonder if Preston are a bit of a Sunderland, Bolton.
They're a bit of a poison chalice, I think, Preston.
That's it, exactly. There's a lot of problems behind the scenes that we really do not know the in-depth because we don't look into it because it's not our team, and it's not an exciting team to follow. Give this guy a real challenge, and he's been out there touting himself within the last 72 hours. Oh, I'm ready to return to Scotland. I'm ready for a top 6 team. Hopefully, he's going to consider a top 8 team. I don't think that's a bad appointment. I'm not going to do a cartwheel when he signs. But
without knowing all the details, I just find it very sketchy that, and this is me tinfoil hat on.
Could have just been a coincidence, so that he was talking about returning to Scottish football.
But he's talking about returning to Scottish football whilst commentating on Hibs and going through a lot of the players.
If we'd have won last night, would Jack Ross have been sacked this morning? Though?
No, well, I know, but
it's not like he's in the dressing room.
I think he's just trying to put himself. I think he's just trying to put himself in the conversation.
No, but he's talking about a top 6 club, right? So who's your traditional top 5? Hibs, Hearts, Aberdeen, Celtic, Rangers, right?
Well, Glass has been on a bit of a
Motherwell, Graham Alexander's on a great run. He's won Manager of the Month again. Stephen Glass isn't going to get sacked at Aberdeen.
Is he not, though?
He's best pals with the owner. You've got Dundee United. Cam Courts has done really well at Dundee United in his short spell. So who's the top? Who? Robbie Nielsen's not going to leave Hearts. Postecoglou and Van Bronckhorst are going nowhere. So very quickly you eliminate who it could be, and it very quickly could be us. And like I say, it could just be a huge coincidence. But I don't know. I just think there's something in it. There's been rumours of fallouts behind the scenes between Ron Gordon and Jack Ross as well, which it
probably goes back to this main January window that we've been talking about, though. The guys doesn't feel supported. The supporters are always going to get on the manager's back before anything else, and that's it.
Yeah. Well, let's move on to who is the 3 candidates. 2 realistic and 1 fantasy daft candidate that you'd like to see or can see happening, filling Jack Ross's boots. Stuart, do you have your 3?
I do have my 3, yeah. I'm going to be honest, I'm going to go middle of the road for the obvious first one, Alex Neal. I think it is an obvious one. He's been out of work since March, but knows the Scottish game, knows what we're about, plays a high press, good attacking football. I think he'll give us a bit of a steal. So it's what we've been missing, what we want to see. There's going to be guys that are going to be disagreeing with me. Jim Goodwin. That guy,
I can see it happening.
The guy is due a move. He's doing great stuff at St Mirren. Even last season, when
we've not signed anybody for St Mirren in a wee while, to be fair.
We haven't. Yeah, that's
we tried to.
Like we had the game against them last season where their keeper got sent off due to the wild challenge, things like that. They were still pressing. They were still giving us a real good game. That's the kind of guy I want to see. My absolutely radio rental one, and I'm going to mute you two if I can brutally can, is Class of 92, Gary Neville.
Oh, come on. He's a way to be a politician.
He probably is, but I'm not going to count Valencia against him. This guy talks. He moves to a foreign country the guy can barely speak English.
Liam, this was his fantasy.
It's my fantasy.
Exactly.
That's it, exactly.
Let him have his threesome with Goodwin, Neal, and Gary Neville.
That's the smelliest threesome I think I've ever heard.
No, the guy's one of my favourite pundits online, or to kind of watch and bring up. I honestly reckon, considering the Lampard, Gerrard, trio that have come into football, I reckon Neville would be a phenomenal signing to get into the British game. He's not gonna step away from this guy's words. It's proper mental, but that's what you asked for. That's what I'm going for.
I like it. Liam, what's your 3? I think I know
Matthew,
one of them. I definitely know
you know
one of them. I know one of them.
You need a wee bit more time, another couple of minutes. So again, boring. My first one is Alex Neal, for all the reasons that you said, Stuart. I think from what I've heard, he likes to play pressing football, attacking football, fast flowing football, and that's what we want to see it. Eastern Road. My second one, I've written down about 4 or 5 for my second one, but I'm going to go with Sean Maloney. If we can prize him from the grasps of Belgium. I feel that he would have learnt so much next to Martinez at Belgium. He would have learnt so much, from all those players and everything. And the way that Belgium play is a good brand of football. You like to watch them play. He's got to take a managerial job somewhere, and you can probably see it being in Scotland. I don't know if he's got any affinity to Hibs at all. He didn't play for us, but I think that could be a good appointment. It would be a risky one. It'd be like a Cathro, never managed before, but
it could be a Tony Mowbray. Fair play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I've got 3 for my fantasy one. I've got
no. You need to pick one. The rule is pick one.
Right. Okay. I'm going to go instead of managerial ability, instead of banter. I'm going to go for pure style and pick Andrea Pirlo, just because he's a sexy man, isn't he?
And he's probably one of the only guys in Scottish in world football that could be better dressed than Jack Ross.
Aye.
That's a big ask.
To give Jack his due, he always looked the part.
A sharp man, isn't he?
The part.
He really is. But yeah, Pirlo, I think is my one. Didn't obviously do that well at Juventus, but some calibre of player. I don't know if he can speak a lucky English, but come and manage Hibs, Andrea, that'd be brilliant.
I think my 2 realistics, not that this is necessarily what I'd want, but just who I think would be realistic. One of them, I think, is obviously Derek McInnes. I know if we thought the football was bad under Ross, what could it be like under McInnes? However, he did have Aberdeen consistently challenging up there. It only really went sour towards the end. Players like Johnny, he got a tune out of players like Johnny Hayes, Niall McGinn, Sam Cosgrove. He had a solid back line. He could give us that solid option, but would it just be a continuation of Jack Ross? Second one, maybe a wee bit not outside the box a wee bit, but Billy Reid, who
he didn't work for a while.
He's the assistant to Graham Potter at Brighton.
Wait, Billy, I'm thinking of Billy Davis.
Yeah, Billy Reid. So former
Billy
Hamilton,
Davis was one I thought of as well, I've got to be honest. Yeah.
Former Hamilton manager. I think he was maybe touted years ago. And then he just sort of fell off the radar a bit. He went out to Sweden where Graham Potter was, and he's been Potter's assistant from Östersunds to Swansea. I think they were together, Swansea, before he got the Brighton job. Maybe he could be tempted back into being a number one. He's been in Scotland before. He knows the league. He knows how it works. And then fantasy one, I think just for pure patter, you've got to can die to get 3 points.
That's Mr.
Mr. Neil Warnock himself would be box office.
That's the difference. We're in Edinburgh now. That's the difference.
Lionel!
He's admitted in an interview he's a Hun. We cannot have this. I'm sorry.
Oh, come on, Stuart.
No, I'm willing to accept Pirlo as a fantasy one more than
you said Gary Neville, right? Who's too busy trying to be the next mayor of Manchester whilst running Salford, whilst running hotels. I'll let you have your fantasy. I stuck up for your fantasy.
He did, to be fair.
Mines.
Right, let's quickly move on
to purely patter.
I'd rather you said Scarlett Johansson if we're talking about fantasies. I've got to be honest.
Let's move on to some listener questions. We'll go quick fire here. Kat Ferguson says, how about John Doolan? Loved the club and was passionate when he was here under Stubbs. What do you think?
Decent shout that, yeah.
Good as a number 2. Could he do it as a number 1?
Always a shout that he was doing a lot of work.
Always the bridesmaid. Who knows? I mean, you'd never know until he took it. I don't think he's had has he had a job? Was he no manager of Tranmere or something?
No, he's the assistant or first team coach at Accrington Stanley.
Right.
I hate when people come in with good shouts. It makes us look daft.
Yeah. Jack Gillis, 1875 is not a question, but he says, would happily take a punt on Ian Murray. I'd quite like to tell you, Jack, that is absolutely ridiculous.
No. Bring him in as an assistant. Yeah.
Bring him in as a mascot, maybe.
Assistant could work, but not. He was poor at St Mirren. By all accounts, he's doing well at Airdrie, but part-time, no.
He was chucked in at the deep end at St Mirren, let's be fair.
I know, but he still wasn't good enough, and he's probably not good enough now. Next, Ryan Melville says, Stephen Bradley of Shamrock Rovers just won back-to-back leagues in Ireland, relatively decent playing background, 5 top 3 finishes in 6 years, been there since 2016.
Fenlon.
I've never heard of him, but it does give me Pat Fenlon vibes.
That's exactly, I've seen that as well, and that's exactly what I felt. However, I'm sure Shamrock have got to the Europa League group stages.
I think they did, yeah.
I might be, or was that maybe Dundalk? I don't know. One of them did.
No.
One of them.
But the guy that's at Celtic now, that Liam Scales played for Shamrock. So there could be a wee bit of talent to dip into there as well.
Maybe.
Not slagging our good Irish pals due to the fact I am on the Hibs Irish supporters bus for the League Cup final. Cheers, guys.
How are they getting a bus for Ireland?
No.
I think there's a ferry.
Right, fair enough.
Going to Kent as well. That's some journey, that.
I think I'm getting picked up at the Hibs Club. I've got to be honest. Well, I need to check that with someone. Oh, yeah, Hibs
Next
Club
one.
in Kent.
Next one, Stuart McKenzie says, would anyone like Alex McLeish back? Loved watching his teams.
No.
Personally, I thought Alex McLeish was about 80. So, no, I would take McLeish back. Never in a month for Sunday.
Not after the way he left us, no.
Yeah. No. He made an absolute arse the last transfer window. Derek Townsley, phenomenal signing, obviously. But he was actually player manager at Motherwell when we took him.
No, I think he just maybe stopped. I think he was still registered as a player, but he wasn't playing.
To be fair, I think Jim Duffy was a Hibs player manager as well.
Another one here. Alistair Taylor says, just very bluntly, Lennon or Stubbs?
Neither.
If you had to choose one, Lennon or Stubbs?
Neither.
If I had to choose, Stubbsy.
And then the next ones are more, you need to think a bit more about the answers. Callum asks, would Liam and Craig consider taking the job? And if so, who's the manager and who's the assistant? I'll answer that for you, Callum. I'd be the manager and Craig would be the kit man. I wouldn't even have him as my assistant. I wouldn't listen to anything he said. That's that. Next we both
know. We both know that's
am I the throwing coach?
You've got blacklisted for a season ticket if I'm the manager, Stuart. I'm sorry.
That's harsh but fair.
Next one, Andy McCall on Facebook says, would you rather pump Hearts in the New Year derby 7-0 or beat Celtic in the cup final 1-0?
Cup final.
8-0 New Year derby.
Yeah. I'd be happy with a 1-0 in both games. I'm not going to lie. And finally, Jamie Grahamson, sorry if I've butchered your name there, McInnes or Alec Neal?
Alec Neal.
Yeah, I think so. Let me just have a look and see if there's any other ones that aren't to do with managerial. Oh, here's one. Keith Robertson asks, as we look forward to the St Mirren game, with no captain or vice captain for Saturday's game at St Mirren, who will lead the team? And that's, let's take it that Porteous won't play as well.
Lewis Stevenson.
Being injured. Yeah, I think it would have to be
Stevenson.
Darren McGregor.
Or Boyle. McGregor, McGregor.
Boyle has had the armband before, hasn't he?
Yeah.
Has he?
I'm sure he did.
Oh.
When
Sorry, I'm doing the Curious George pose. Has he?
Not from the start of a game, I think.
No, he was given it. He was definitely given it.
Maybe Paul Hanlon was subbed off or something.
Yeah. Aye, so basically he was the closest player, so he got chopped the handband. Yeah.
Well, I think that moves us nicely on to McClendo's Moan.
Oh,
now, it does.
For those who are, we're only the second episode in, we've introduced McClendo's Moan as a way for Liam to get whatever's been getting on his chest off it. in Scottish football over the last sort of week or so. Liam gets between a minute and 2 minutes to ramble. There's no arguing from me. There's no arguing from any of our other guests. It is purely Liam's chance to let loose. So, Liam, what has been your moan over the past 7 days?
Well, funnily enough, Craig, this moan has been inspired by our guest today, Stuart Wilson. And the topic of the moan is...
I still can't discuss this.
You can't discuss it, no. That's the best bit.
Yep.
That's why I've chosen specifically to have this one, because I knew you were coming on. The SFA, in quotation marks, conspiracy against the old firm, because that is absolutely not a conspiracy against or for the old firm. And Stuart, I know you said after the Rangers game, oh, it's blatant cheating. I'm sorry, this isn't the Serie A. They're not Juventus. They're not paying the referees to give them penalties or give anyone else red cards. And I've got the receipts here to back it up, right? There were Celtic fans talking, and it's not just Hibs fans. It's when Celtic fans say there's a conspiracy against Celtic, when Rangers fans say there's a conspiracy against Rangers, and it's ridiculous. There were Celtic fans at the weekend saying that Butcher's non-red card somehow justified a conspiracy against Celtic because Pochis got sent off for less at Ibrox. And I, for one, that I had to read it a few times to even understand what he meant. But it was absolutely ridiculous because Butcher has now been given a retrospective ban.
Yeah,
exactly. Although there is some stats that kind of lean towards a conspiracy, it's not. Rangers are the second lowest on fouls made. Celtic are 8th in the table of fouls made. Guess who's bottom of the table with the lowest fouls and the most red cards? The most red cards, the lowest fouls, Hibs.
Yep.
6 reds.
I think that's changed recently.
No, this is counting from last night. 6 reds.
Jeez.
Mental. Hibs have had the second most penalties behind Hearts, and then so Hibs, Hearts, and Ross County have all had more penalties than Celtic, and Rangers have had only Hibs and Hearts have more penalties than them. Rangers had 4, Hearts had 6, Hibs had 5.
As a semi-guest, of course, I will respect Liam's moan section. Carry on. I think that's all I can say about that.
To be fair,
I look forward to comments filling in about this, but
it's incompetence, not a conspiracy. That's my final. That's my final bit. Moving swiftly on, boys. I was at Livingston last night, and I've got another addition to the Cinch Pie Mayorship, my pie chart for the podcast that we'll do weekly. And this time it was the turn of Livingston. And I tell you what, Craig, I was really looking forward to going to Livingston and trying their pies, because Tony Macaroni does the catering. So you
did actually explain how excited you were for a macaroni pie for the Tony Macaroni Stadium.
Well, it was a Tony Macaroni pie for the Tony Macaroni Arena. But you'll imagine my shock, you'll imagine my horror when you walk into the Tony Macaroni Stadium, and who does the catering? Some other company. It's not Tony Macaroni anymore. So I was like, nah, I'm not here for gimmicks. I'm here to try the bread and butter. So I got a steak pie because it wasn't a Tony Macaroni pie.
I will hold my hands up. Can I go into a Tony Macaroni restaurant? I use the word restaurant loosely, and get a macaroni pie.
I don't think they serve macaroni pies. It's more of a high-class establishment than that.
I think, again, high class is a bit of a
high class in compared to like McDonald's and KFC and that. But let's move on to the review. And it was served classically in a foil tray, piping hot, which was good compared to the one at St Johnstone before.
What was the consistency of the foil? How was it? Was it a one lift? Or was
It was a one
break?
lift.
Or was that a break?
It was a one lift.
Ooh, all right.
One lift compared to the St
Compared to
Johnstone
Perth.
one,
Yep.
which wasn't a one lift. That was you had to make your hand a spoon to get the fill in it. So it was served piping hot. A one lift. The pastry was nice and crisp, brilliant, brilliant texture to it. Broke a wee bit off, had a wee bite. It was all right, but I'll tell you what, mate, the fun stopped there. A bit into it, and the gravy was tasteless. The steak was tough and
Was it just
gristly.
was it like gristle? Aye.
Yeah, at the same time, it tasted all right, the meat, but the gravy was tasteless and piping hot. And to be honest, I've definitely had worse pies. I've 100% had better pies. But by default, they have reached the top of the Cinch Premiership with a 6.5 out of 10.
6.5. It's not bad actually. I would just like to make a comment as well on the pie that I had at the Motherwell game on Saturday. Alfie has decided that he now likes the sort of pepperoni pizza twist things, which I think could have come down for previous Easter Road pizzas.
Yeah, they were good.
And I got my standard steak pie and Bovril, only to get to my seat, open my wrapper, pull my pie out, and realise there was an awful lot of salt on top of my pie. So I thought,
mince pie.
That's not how a steak and gravy pie usually looks. I'll bite into it. And what did I bite into? You guessed it, a mince pie. A cold mince pie, let me say.
Well, if I can add to that, I did have a steak and gravy pie at Easter Road at the weekend, and it was nice. I'm not rating it though because I was drunk, and I feel it's unfair. It would give the Easter Road pies an unfair advantage over other pies that I've had when I've been sober. So I'm not going to rate that pie. I'm going to wait until I get into Easter Road when I've not had a few pints and rate the pie then. Plus, it's the steak and haggis ones that I'm looking for, and just steak if they don't have steak and haggis available. But
nicely, that takes us.
I feel we've debated this more than the new manager. But yeah, good play.
Well, it's more important, isn't it?
Nicely takes us from
managers come and goes pie. Yeah.
From Premiership to Paisley. Hibs travel to Paisley to take on St Mirren on Saturday. A classic case of two idiots throwing wet paper towels at each other to see what sticks. And of course, more importantly, it will be game number 1 in charge for interim manager Sir David Gray.
But before we look at how Hibs will line up, let's have a wee look at the most recent results for St Mirren. So most recently, they got dismantled by Aberdeen at Pittodrie 4-1. Scott Tanser was their scorer. And their game before that, they drew 0-0 at home to Ross County. And then before that, they were beaten 2-0 at Tynecastle. Before that, 1-1 against Livingston, McGrath the scorer, and then St Johnstone and St Mirren before that was 0-0. Brophy is their top scorer and Tanser is their top assister. So what are we looking at for? I think we should just go and attack them.
We are looking at...
been good enough.
Hold on a minute. This is almost like a Price is Right scenario. Are you struggling for a win? Fans getting on your manager's back? Low down the bottom of the league and need that helping hand? Hibernian FC, come on down. It does eerily have the hallmarks of last night against Livingston and Ross County the week before. However,
this is an Eddie May.
Yeah,
there's a bit of an omen about this game, isn't there?
Yes, the last time that we went to Paisley with an interim manager, we won 3-1.
If I may, last time we did that.
If I may.
I didn't even. I'm going to pretend I meant that. Thank you. I was at the London Hibs Burns dinner. Far too many fizzy waters, shall we say. And we all met up in a bar in London afterwards. The rumours were circulating all night about what happened with Lennon, all wild conspiracies. and we absolutely smacked them in 3-1. It was brilliant. Great night out with the boys. I don't think we've got anything to fear. I'm going to say 3-0 Hibs. Full stop.
Are we going right into predictions?
Oh, sorry. Yes, I am.
I think I agree with you. Obviously the options at the back is concerning. We said earlier on, Porteous might be fit, Porteous might not be fit. I don't know. I'm not too sure. If anyone knows, hopefully Cadden's back in the squad again for Saturday. That would give us a big boost. And Paul McGinn's out, so hopefully we can get a couple of defenders back, and it can be less makeshift and more, just one or two players kind of missing out. So
I want Lewis Stevenson at right back, and I want it now. That is a throwback that we deserve.
Yeah, no, I think we'll line up the way that we line up, and it'll be different, obviously, but there'll be no one in the Paisley 2021 City of Culture Stadium, whatever it's called, that wants a win more than David Gray.
Yeah, and the pressure's off as well, I think, for Hibs.
The pressure's definitely off.
Despite where we find ourselves in the league and the run that we've been on, it's a weird thing to say. But I don't think there's anyone at this moment, caretaker-wise, that the club could want in that position more than David Gray. If there's anybody that is going to get leeway for the support,
that's what I was thinking.
It reminds me of Sozzy back in 2001 when McLeish left.
Good shout, yeah.
I do think
because of the esteem.
There's a lot more tattoos.
Yeah, it's the esteem that Sozzy was held by the Hibs support. Even till now, fans think that he was, unfairly treated, despite the fact that we won 1-15.
Yeah, I do think as well, with David Gray now being in charge for this game, I think we'll see not a much bigger, but I think we will see a few more Hibbies coming through, going through to Paisley to watch them. I was going through anyway, regardless of who is in charge. But I think we'll probably see a wee bit more of an attendance for Hibs at St Mirren, and I know that can only help the team.
For me, last night my missus was out. She went to go see a theatre talk, and I honestly was semi-struggling to get myself up to watch Hibs on TV. That is a worrying state of affairs. Saturday was coming around. If there'd been no change, last night's performance, I'd be thinking, I could maybe take her up for a pub lunch and avoid the Hibs. That's not where I want to be watching my team.
Yeah, I think that's
so. All of a sudden, so David,
that's symptomatic. You're obviously so far away that you can't attend week in, week out. But I felt the same on Saturday. I was standing at the top of the road waiting for the tram, and the snow started coming down.
Oh.
I'm there, Alfie, and I'm looking at Alfie, and I'm like, do we go? Do we not? And I was like, do you know what? We'll just go. We're already out. We'll just go. But that could have very easily, as soon as I got there, I was like, why did we come? It's freezing. The football's garbage. I got a mince pie instead of a steak pie. So it wasn't a great day all round. The seats, the empty seats at Easter Road, I think, are symptomatic. And your attitude is no different to, a good sizable portion of the Hibs support.
Yeah, definitely. Well, moving on, I'll get a quick prediction. You say 3-0 Stuart. Are you sticking by that?
Yep, 3-0 to the Highbees. Go on.
Craig, what do you think?
I'll go 2-1.
I'll be happy with a 1-0. So I will say 5-0 Hibs. Good predictions, lads. I wouldn't put a fiver on it. I'm not too sure. I don't even think we'll score 5 goals in the next 10 games. But as long as we win, I'm no bothered. So I've thought up a little game for you both. And since you're on, Stuart, you can challenge Craig, who is the top mind at Hibernian quiz games.
That's a worrying state of affairs.
He's the quiz champ. I still believe he's the quiz champ.
I think he is
still the quiz champ. Craig?
Aye, the last one was
Or
going
Matty
on
Reid.
about what was on, like, how much were Arsenal stuff selling for on eBay and all that.
Yeah.
That doesn't count.
Yeah, no, I mean, you're the linear champ.
Exactly.
You're the Tyson Fury of HibsTalk quizzes.
Yeah.
So, this game is called Paisley Hibernian. And briefly, as a description for the game, I've got 5 players / managers before Jack Ross got sacked, who have played / managed for both Hibs and St Mirren. And all you need to do is round by round tell me what team they played more games for. In the case of a tiebreak, I've not thought about that yet. So let's just hope that one of you win in 90 minutes. Okay?
Sounds good.
Have you got any questions? Do you understand, guys?
Good to go.
Go for it.
Amazing. So we'll start off with
Is
David
it like a zzz, like somebody answer first, or
Or
No,
we're playing
you
a higher or lower.
No, it's not a higher or lower. I'll say the player's name, and then I'll go to Stuart and say, who do you think he played more games for, Hibs or St Mirren?
Okay.
And you'll say St Mirren, and I'll go, Craig, who do you think he played more games for, Hibs or St Mirren? And you'll go,
right?
Hibs or whatever.
So we can both get a point from a round if we both agree.
Yes.
Cool.
So first all, we've got David Van Zanten. Stuart, you're the guest. St Mirren or
more
Hibs?
games. St Mirren more games. Yeah.
Yeah, St Mirren. I'd say St Mirren.
St Mirren. And I can tell you that you both get a point for David Van Zanten played a lot more games for St Mirren than they did Hibs. And he's going to be my tiebreaker, actually. I'm going to try and see if you can guess the amount of games that he played for St Mirren if it ends in a tiebreak. Next up, John McGinn. Craig, who do you think he played more games for?
I am going to say
It's league games, by the way, not League Cup and
I'm
Europe
trying
as well.
I'm just trying to think when he broke through. I'm gonna say Hibs.
I'm going to say Hibs. Sure.
Yeah.
Yes, I would agree, actually. I'd say Hibs.
You are both right. He played
Ooh.
87 times for St Mirren in the league, but played for Hibs 101 times. So it's pretty neck and neck. Next up is his big brother, Paul McGinn. Stuart, how many? Who did he play more games for, St Mirren or Hibs?
I think he's been pretty consistent with the hobbies, but I'm got to say St Mirren. He's been there for a good few while beforehand. Yeah.
Craig?
I'm going to go Hibs on that one.
Well, I can tell you that one of you is right, and it is Craig.
Bollocks here.
He's played 60 times for Hibs, including last night, but played only 57 times for St Mirren. Next up is Stevie Mallon. Craig, did he play more games for Hibs or did he play more games for St Mirren?
Oh, Mallon. I'll go Hibs.
You go Hibs, Stuart?
I was going to say St Mirren.
You're going to say St Mirren? One of is right, and it is Stuart Wilson.
Aye.
Stevie Mallon played 93 times for St Mirren, but only 71 times for Hibs.
I was trying to think back to when they started and if they played enough, because obviously he went to Barnsley before coming to us. Yeah.
Next one. So if you go for different options on this one person is definitely going to win. This is the last question. Jack Ross. Did he manage more games for St Mirren or did he manage more league games for Hibs? Stuart Wilson, I'll come to you first.
I'm going to say Hibs. He was at St Mirren for a pretty short period and then got a big jump to Sunderland. That's where my fight was.
Craig, what do you think?
Yeah, he had half a season at St Mirren and a full season, and he's had. Oh, actually.
Is there a clock on this? Come on, mate.
I'll give you a few seconds.
No, I'd probably say Hibs as well, actually.
You're going to say Hibs?
Yeah.
Well, I can tell you they're both right. He managed 80 games for St Mirren, but 96 for Hibs before his passing this morning.
Do you know what threw me a wee bit was the COVID?
I think you mean departure.
So, tiebreaker.
Oh.
David Van Zanten, the closest to the pin wins. How many times did he play in the league for St Mirren?
I know
Who's
he
going
went.
first?
He was at them twice, wasn't he?
Yeah.
He was there for years as well.
And he's got the same problem. He's consistent.
Yeah.
That's like he just keeps getting in every time.
Yep. Gonna need to push his
I
for an
think
answer.
what, say 7 years, 7, 8 years, 38 games a season, probably played the majority of them. I'll go 215.
215.
Yep.
Stuart.
I was thinking closer to 200. Got to be honest. So
you're going for
not a lot in it.
200?
Yeah, 200.
What's the leeway here? What are we?
Just closest to the pin wins.
Right.
So, Craig, you went 215.
I'll say
Stuart, you're saying 200.
215.
You know what? Does it make it better if I say like 190? Would that make it life easier?
It wouldn't make life easier for you, I'm afraid.
Oh.
Because you'd lose. Craig, well done, mate. But you were still nowhere near. 332 league games he played for St Mirren. That's
Did he
staggering.
really? Bloody
Jesus.
That's
hell.
staggering. Yeah, he had like 190 something in his first spell, and then 100 and something in his second spell.
Oh.
Christ.
So
Some effort.
Fair play to him. Yeah.
100. It must have been about 100, 140 something in his second spell. So it was, I mean, good effort
Yeah, fair play to
playing
him.
that many games for St Mirren. But well done, Craig. He retains his
Hold on, Craig.
his status as the champ king, the champ king, the quiz king, the quiz champ.
Off Google.
So well done, mate. Have you got any speeches? Anyone to thank?
Why would I thank anybody, mate? It's just what it is, eh? It's
Well, you need to thank Stuart Wilson for having an absolutely ridiculous guess at the end there.
no, he wasn't that far away. We both went quite near.
He was pretty far away.
To be
Yeah,
fair,
in
if
total, we're far
I
away,
went-
but neither of us were close.
I took games off as well, thinking that he wouldn't have played in every game, but it seems as if he probably has played every game. But I think that rounds up quite a tumultuous day.
It does.
For the Hibees. Once again, I think we would just like to pass our best wishes on to Jack Ross and John Potter and hope that they,
all the best,
one,
guys.
are listening, and two, that they do go on to achieve some sort of success elsewhere, as long as it's not at our expense. Yeah. Massive game on Saturday, away to St Mirren, and then so begins the Cup final week. I know that Gav's got quite a few ideas going for getting a lot of content out in the run-up to the game against Celtic at Hampden next Sunday. And me and Liam will be back on Thursday next week to discuss Dundee.
Or Wednesday, because the game's on Tuesday. So
I've got
either
training,
Wednesday
so
or Thursday.
Won't
Oh, yeah. Actually, no, and I can't do Wednesday either because I want to see the Spider-Man.
Yeah, so it'll be more of a look towards than a look back, because it's an absolutely humongous game on Sunday at Hampden. So once again, Liam, it's been a pleasure having you with me on HibsTalk Extra Time. And Stuart Wilson,
couldn't think of anyone better.
Thanks very much for joining us this week, mate.
Cheers for coming on, Stu.
Yeah, thanks for having me, guys. Appreciate it.
Nice one, mate.
Cheers.